I know that you are a very knowledgeable person on batteries and solar power and how it's going to change our lives. So maybe you can tell a bit more about yourself first, then we get into the details. Really excited.
I've been in renewables now for 17 years, so it's a fair while. Started out in the thermal side of things, dealing with waste heat and solar thermal to provide cooling options. That turned out to be not necessarily an option here in Australia, given the complexity of the plumbing involved and unfortunately the lack of knowledge of the trades here. And it quickly became apparent early on that PV was going to be the option that is just much more cost competitive. And then storage and obviously the drop in costs for modules have pushed me into other areas. So I've been on the electricity side now for the last 7, 8 years and dealing with that in varying roles, both as a chief operating officer at Sonnen for Asia Pacific, as well as at Switched In following that. So dealing both with the battery side, but also with VPPs, with aggregation, with orchestration, with optimization, grid support services at all levels. And now here at RedEarth as CEO.
Tell a little bit more about RedEarth. What are you trying to do and what technologies? And I know it's a very popular battery.
It is. It's one of the few Australian-made batteries and one of the few Australian-made integrated systems that are sold here. We've been around for 12 years now as a company. We've started out in the off-grid and rural area, providing solutions to customers who couldn't get access to electricity in a cost-competitive way, doing diesel replacement and other options. That quickly moved into other adjacent areas, so fringe urban, fringe rural areas, but also supporting both commercial as well as industrial customers alongside our initial residential customer base. Every one of our solutions follows the same basic concept of being a plug-and-play system, basically integrating all the AC switchgear and all the options, regardless of if you're on-grid or off-grid. So every system we deploy, even if you're on-grid, is capable of backing up the whole house or the facility that it is connected to. And obviously, in all cases, it's connected to local generation. That's a concept that's changing a little bit for the larger batteries. We've now moved into areas where merchant batteries, or in some cases, just simple batteries, are deployed, even without local generation. And given the volatility of the market here, that's becoming quite viable. But apart from that, storage is our main game. Storage to enable grid services, but predominantly to actually manage cost and energy use, renewable energy use for our customers, enabling the time shifting and ensuring that we minimize the impact on the environment.
Okay, so this is LFP technologies or any different?
All our batteries are LFP, so we don't use any NMC batteries at all. We are looking at other chemistries, but at this point in time, in terms of energy density as well as cost and availability, LFP is the go-to chemistry that we're working with.
Yeah. And now, so you said you were doing from a small off-grid to independent households to larger system in a commercial. So you must have a different size of batteries. What are the sizes you are marketing right now?
We have a small product which is called Black Max, which has been a mainstay of the company, which initially was marketed as Power Your Shed. And happily, that's exactly what it does. It's meant for off-grid deployments. It's a 5 kilowatt, 15 kilowatt hour max system. It's completely self-contained. It has its own switchgear, and you could actually use it to power your shed. And that's what most people do. So you find it in horse studs, in cattle properties to actually power remote locations. But it's also now used for tiny house locations. So it works really well on the front of a tiny house and powers the whole house. That's the starting point. We then have the Gecko, which is a small footprint residential system, which is from 5 kilowatt up to 15 kilowatts and up to 30 kilowatt hours. And then we've got the Bushchook, which is a slightly bigger footprint residential system, which goes up to about 45 kilowatt hours, but also up to 15 kilowatts each. That's the residential size. You can double those up because some of our customers in remote areas want to be able to do 30 kilowatts. So you can basically have two of those combined and they act as one with up to 60 or 80 kilowatt hours of battery. And we do have a fair few customers who use that in remote locations because it's their main source of power and keeps their building obviously operating at all times. Then there is a bit of a soft switch over. There is a commercial industrial system, which is cabinet size, starts at 30 kilowatts and 60 kilowatt hours, and then 50 kilowatts, and then 100 kilowatts, and up to about 250, 300 kilowatts on a cabinet size product. We have one customer who's used to do a 500 kilowatt, 1.2 megawatt hour system. That's something I would generally recommend because it involves a fair bit of cabling, but he likes the looks of it. So who are we to say no? Normally, for a system like that, the next step up would be into a containerized platform. And the containerized platform that we deliver ranges from 200 kilowatts up to 2.5 megawatts, and from 400 kilowatt hours up to about 10 megawatt hours. And
Yeah,
those
yeah.
systems are fully built locally, but also plug and play. So all the AC switchgear included, you literally just put your load side, your grid side if you have it, or your generator, and your DC from your PV, and you're done. Nothing else to do. The system works.
Even the larger ones will be surface mounted. Nobody's going underground. Thinking at one stage that even the domestic situation, maybe it would be a good idea to dug up a place and bury it under the ground.
It sounds like an interesting approach. We have some customers who put it in their garages. So some of our more well-to-do customers, when your delivery instructions include, make sure when you deliver it, don't scratch the Ferraris, multiple. You know who the customer type is that you're dealing with.
Now, the reason I'm saying I have a house in Doncaster, it's a slope. And many years ago, when we built that house, so someone said, hey, get a big container, dug up and put some wine, cover it up, open it in 40 years' time. And every time I look at the property, I mean, we spend a lot of time landscaping. I said, I should have done that. So I was just thinking, is anybody actually digging up and putting the battery underground?
Now, your problem is going to be serviceability, because you need to be able to get batteries in or out. And these are heavy beasts and you need a fair bit of space. Unless you have an elevator that delivers to it, hey, then it would work.
Now, you said your battery is, of course, Australian made. So are the cells made in Australia as well, or cells are imported? You are packaging?
Yeah, again, 90+% of all battery cells are manufactured in China. That's not going to change. Given the cost competitiveness and the scale that's been built up over in China, I don't see any short or medium-term change to that. There's obviously that requirement increasingly, especially post-COVID, for sovereign capability and the option that a lot of countries are looking at to be able to build these themselves. And I understand where that's coming from. It's for some very specific use cases like defense and others. I understand that there's a need to enable that. But on a general basis, again, and we unfortunately have no option here as well. You have to buy from China to be cost competitive. We do that as well. So our cells come from China. In fact, our cell packs come from China. We don't do the local cell pack assembly either. Again, for the same reason. Doing the welding and the quality control here is not something we can do cost competitively. What we do is we get the cell packs in, we do the final assembly, the cabling, the BMS integration, and the end-of-line testing. And obviously, all of that happens here locally in our factory, and we use advanced manufacturing techniques to do that. So that's the level of work we do. We co-develop the cells, and we co-develop the BMS with partners in Europe as well as in China. So that's also something that we do joint.
Yeah. This question comes up because Australia has been producing so much lithium. I have quite a bit of exposure on some lithium shares also. So when you look at it, but yeah, it's very difficult because the technology of making cells are so advanced.
It's a scale problem more than anything else. And it's interesting. We continuously have these discussions with the government and also with a variety of different industry organizations that are trying to provide a fully integrated vertical supply chain, literally from digging it out of the ground all the way through to manufacturing and then deploying the cells and the batteries. There are ways, and I think there's a really good argument to make to not export ore anymore, but to actually do the refining and actually export lithium, potentially even in further steps. So move up that value chain and provide more capabilities. I 100% agree with that, especially if we can leverage green energy as we do here. Going all the way is where it stops. So actually doing the films here, no, I think those are scale steps. We should leave to those that actually can do it inexpensively.
Exciting. So where is the main factory established and how large it is?
We're on the outskirts of Brisbane. So we're in Darra, which is an industrial and commercial suburbs here in Brisbane. We don't have a huge factory. Our factory grounds are about 3,000 square meters here, but that's sufficient in terms of our scale to grow where we need to be and to do what we need to do right now.
Yeah, you must have a huge expansion plan, the way the wave of batteries coming in Australia, no?
It's an interesting one. This has been part of the work that we've done over the last 12 months. The company, it's 12 months old, but it had some interesting challenges in terms of scale in the past. It scaled to a particular point, but then hit problems on how to scale further. And we've been working on that over the last 12 months. And we basically know that we can scale to about 4 times or 5 times as much output as we do today. And that puts us squarely into the top 5 of manufacturers, or not manufacturers, but the battery vendors here in Australia when we get to that point. So I'm quite comfortable that we're good enough. And if we get to that, there's ways for us to scale in location by outsourcing some of the logistics handling and moving some of the storage offsite, which is going to get us to, if we want to be the top number one. Always a target to aim for.
Yes, I wanted to ask that. What are your plan to expand in Asia or so? Because Australia Inc., the Australia brand name, it's very important perception-wise and quality-wise, and Australia maintains that. But then the way the wave of battery demand is coming in Australia because of the recent subsidy, maybe you don't need to do anything immediately, no?
There's no immediate plans. Having said that, announcement, and you referred to that in our earlier conversations, the microgrid in a box announcement that we did jointly with AmbiBox and with Nebula out of China really is around us enabling capabilities offshore as well. So yes, it's about access to China's production costs. It's about access to capabilities that complement ours to a large degree and enable us to build the next generation product. But that also allows us ultimately, once we're at the point where we want to be in terms of market penetration here in Australia and New Zealand, to then go offshore to targeted markets in Asia Pacific. And yes, we have our eyes on select few markets in the ASEAN region that we'd be interested in. And those are ones that we will be looking at in the course of the next 2 years.